Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Duayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.
Variations aren't something to be scared of, because I'd rather a client change their mind and it might cost them $1,000 to move a wall frame. I'd rather them do that now and get to the end of the job and go, geez, I'm glad we did that, rather than get to the end of the job and then go, actually, you know what, I really wish we had to move that wall frame, but now it's going to cost you $3,000 to move.
Hello and welcome to Level Up with Duayne Pearce. My dream is to improve the residential building industry for all involved. Throughout this podcast, we're going to be chatting to all types of industry experts to make sure that builders, tradies and clients all have a fantastic experience. All right, so we're here with Ryan from RKB Renovations. How are you, mate? Welcome to the shed.
Mate, thank you very much. It's a pretty cracking shed.
So, mate, how are things going? What you're a builder?
Yes.
Mate, what got you into the industry? What do you love about being a builder?
What got me into it, my dad had his own kitchen maker business back when I was a kid, so I was exposed to building from a pretty early age. I did work with some of Dad's mates on my school holidays, that sort of thing, and as I was sort of finishing school, just sort of realised, well, hang on a minute, I'm actually not too bad at this and I really enjoy it. So, but that was kind of at the tail end of the recession, and there weren't a hell of a lot of apprenticeships about, so I ended up joining the Army and doing my apprenticeship through the Army.
So that's why you're a big muscly boy, mate.
20 years ago I might have been a big muscly guy, but definitely not now. But yeah, so spent 6 years in the Army as a carpenter, basically. And then came to the end of my sort of initial contract with the Army, and the direction was either go down the promotion path or go down the civilian path, and just decided that you know what, I just want to be a chippy on the tools and develop my trade a bit more. And so got out, and then worked for a few years for different builders around Brisbane, and then just kind of fell into going out on my own. Yeah.
Excellent. So what's your passion for the industry, mate? Like my passion keeps growing. Like I always wanted to be a builder. It's the only thing I wanted to be, but now it's led to like one of the sort of things that I'm doing, everything I'm doing for now is like everyone in the world lives in or should live in a home or a house, and we get to build houses. Yeah. So it's a huge passion of mine, delivering people's dreams. Like most people, a house is the most expensive thing they'll ever purchase, and most people, probably changing a little bit these days, but most people that's their biggest goal or the dream is to have a home, and we get to create those homes. Yeah. Like what's your driver for being a builder, running a good business and working with clients?
I think I've just always enjoyed the lifestyle. I've liked that image of the tradie, with your tool belt on site doing the job. I always sort of really loved that. I think that's what drew me to it. I really enjoy, like you said, you have a client that comes to you with this set of plans, or they want to talk to you about their renovation, and everything's kind of ideas, and you're the guy that actually brings it all together and hands them the keys at the end of the process. And to give a client a really positive renovation experience, it's something I really enjoy. Like I love being able to finish the job, shake hands with the client, and say, "Here you go, this is for you." Yeah. So that's what I really get a kick out of. I really enjoy, working with other tradies, most of the time. But really enjoy working with other tradies, because when you're dealing with professional tradesmen and subcontractors, it just makes the process so much better. We're lucky at the moment, we've got a really good team of guys, not just our carpenters that work for RKB Renovations, but our team of subcontractors that help us do what we do. Everyone understands what we want to get across to the client. Everyone understands the processes we want to go through to make sure that the job is 100% at the end. Up
to your standard.
I
like that you just touched on, mate, you got in the industry because you liked the lifestyle and putting the nail bag on and that sort of stuff. And like that was my like one of my drivers. Like I definitely wasn't a classroom bloke.
Yeah, I was the same. Yeah,
I really didn't pay too much attention at school. Didn't do real well at school, but I have had plenty of big wake up calls because it's to be a great builder, a professional builder, or tradie for that matter. It's a lot more than throwing a nail bag on or driving around with your trailer. I think. Have you had any of those light bulb sort of moments? Like I've had plenty of them. I've wasted a shitload of time and money doing things the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea, to be honest, what it actually took to be to run a business, to be a professional.
Mate, yeah.
Give us a few of your stories.
Oh, mate, I'm very, very similar to yourself.
Keep it short.
How much time we've got? Like most builders, I started off as a chippy, and you're just working on site, and you're seeing the bosses you work for. And there was one particular guy I was working for who did like multi-million-dollar homes, beautiful big projects, and I said to him one time, I said, "Yeah, how'd you get to where you are?" And he said basically that just kept going, and so I thought, as builders, we all start out as a first year, or vast majority of us start out as a first year apprentice chippy, sweeping up and cleaning up and that sort of thing. So I'd kind of gone through that process, gone and got my builder's license, and then to me it was just a natural progression to go, okay, right, I have time to go to my own. Yeah. And with a Cert 4 in construction and a fancy new business, I thought I knew it all. And you realise very quickly that you don't know it all, and you are actually, you actually really need to push hard to run a proper business.
It's a hard industry, isn't it? Because like when you think about it, like I think all tradies and builders. There's a few exceptions out there. I think the ones that go to uni and do project management and that type of thing. But most tradies and builders, that's why we do it, for the lifestyle. We love being outdoors, throwing the nail bag on, cranking the tunes, having a muck around on site with the boys. But it eventually gets to a level where you're running a business. Yeah, and definitely. You've got to be more professional. And I know that's definitely where I fell over. I really struggled with all that accounting and like the amount of hats you have to wear, like to run any business. Like you've got to be an accountant, an advisor, a designer, architect. Like you've got to have all these hats on to be a good builder. And I don't want to scare the young fellas out there, because it's an incredible industry. Like it's unbelievably rewarding when you put in the time and the effort. So, like, what have you done to get over some of your challenges over the years? Yeah,
well, my first crack at building didn't end very well. I sort of went out on my own and started a building company, and just through inexperience, not having good processes in place. Like I didn't even know what processes were.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't understand overheads and cost management, and as you touched on, like the legals, the workplace health and safety, the HR, managing clients, and that is such a big thing.
Huge one. Contracts.
That business, went quite well for a while, and then I started to fall into holes, and I was probably lucky to walk away from that business rather than run away. As old Kenny says in The Gambler, know when to walk away, know when to run. So I got to a point with that business where I just got married, I had a brand new baby girl, and I was doing a couple of projects. You touched on like big architectural homes before. I was doing a lot of that sort of stuff. So a lot of pressure, and my wife said to me, she goes, look, you're not making enough money out of this to make it worthwhile. And when I started crunching numbers, she was absolutely right. So I decided, that's it, I'm done. I just had that one client from hell, and believe me, guys, if you're a builder, you'll have that client from hell.
I think I might have been working across the road from you.
You were, so, you were actually first I met Duayne Pearce on that job.
That's like going back 10, 11 years, I think.
It would be, it'd be around about that, So I just decided, right, that's it. Got out of the industry totally, and went and worked at one of the big girls' schools here in Brisbane as a facilities manager. Had a shirt and tie job. The King G's were gone. And I learnt so much in that job about how to manage clients and manage expectations, how to properly budget for projects, and worked with some amazing project managers and building companies in part of my role at this school. And then, after about 4 years there, decided I missed the smell of sawdust and decided to get back into building
You wanted
again.
some more punishment?
Wanted a bit more punishment, yeah. And my wife thought I was crazy. So got back into it again, but with a much different mindset as to how I was running a business. I now understood overheads better. I knew, okay, well, I've got to be turning over this much money to make the profit I want. You know, we spoke lifestyle before. It's not all about driving around the big flash ute and all the rest of it. It's, you know, making sure that your costs are covered, that you're making proper margins out of jobs. And I think one of the main ones I found was having the right people around you that, you know, don't muck around till all hours at night doing your bookkeeping. Pay a bookkeeper to do it, you know, because it's going to get done a lot more accurately. You know, do what you're good at and employ people to do what they're good at.
Yeah, exactly. Focus on what you know and not what you don't know.
Part of that sort of 4 years off, I sort of did a bit of work for a company teaching guys their Cert 4, doing a bit of work at night. And one thing I used to say to these guys as they were learning to become builders was that, you know, your main responsibility as the builder, forget about putting on the nail bag, is manage your client. You know, manage your client, communicate effectively with that client. Don't be that guy that just rocks up once a week and hands in a progress claim. Be there, you know, every day, making sure the client knows what's happening, because if the client's smiling, 9 times out of 10 you're getting paid. But you're getting paid, which means your subbies and suppliers are getting paid, which means things are generally running smoothly. Yeah. So that was a big learning curve for me. Yeah.
And I think like so many, like I know I definitely did, and like you see it all the time. Like everyone throws around turnover amounts, and it doesn't matter in trades, all types of businesses. And I definitely got sucked into that. Like for so long, I just had this goal of a turnover limit I wanted to get to, and I pretty much got to what, like after about 5 years, I got to it, but I still had no money in the bank. I still had no cash flow. I still had to pick and choose every week what bills I could pay, because I had to wait for another progress payment to come in.
I was in the exact same thing.
It was just a horrible situation to be in, and yet, like, I got so rewarded back then. Like, I was turning over big dollars. I was doing heaps of work. I had suppliers taking me to lunch, overseas holidays. Like, I was getting rewarded. And so I couldn't figure out where I was or what I was doing. Like, I was like, man, what's going on here? I've got no money. Everyone thinks I'm doing really well. Perception looks like I'm kicking goals. I've got the new ute. I've got the big boat, but I don't have any money. And it was like, it took me a long, long time. And like, we pretty much, like, most people know my story, but like, we pretty much hit rock bottom 3 times before it really hit me, and I decided that I had to own up and like really sit down and knuckle down and put some time and effort into what was going on. And like nowadays, like, turnover is nothing to me. Like, turnover, I don't talk about it, not interested in it. I'm interested in running a profitable business.
Absolutely.
And to me, a profitable business is one that I can support my family, support my clients, support all my trades and suppliers. Like, everyone knows they're going to get looked after. I'm going to deliver clients homes. They don't have to worry about me going broke or any of that type of thing. None of my trades and suppliers have to worry about me not paying bills. And I tell you what, it's a lot better. It's a lot better than focusing on that turnover, because at the end of the day, turnover is nothing if you're not making profit.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's, I totally agree that there's so many guys get caught up in that. Oh, but I'm turning over this, I'm turning over that, and if you don't have that money in the bank, if you're not, you know, covering your overheads, if you're not doing the right things with how you're quoting jobs, and that was where I fell over. I wasn't quoting jobs accurately. Then I'd get a progress claim in, and the bank account's up here, and then you'd pay all your bills, and all of a sudden you're back in your overdraft again. You're like, where did that money go?
Yeah, like I was the same. Like I could price. Like, I priced my jobs. I put so much time into quoting my jobs, and I would price them so accurately, but I just did not understand at all what it was taking me to actually go to work every day.
Yeah.
Like, all the miscellaneous little bits and pieces, insurances, phone bills, like it really adds up. Like, as your business starts to grow, and you might get some supervisors, and you put on some staff, and you got all your super and your tax, and there's just so much going on. And like, I like, one of the things I probably struggled with the most was, I think I was a bit afraid to put my hand up and actually say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that is a bit of an issue in our industry, like, especially like most of the industry's blokes, it's actually really good to see. There's a few female builders and tradies
It
and that
is,
coming through now.
it
But
is really good to see.
yeah, I think I was scared. Like I didn't want to put my hand up and say, "Hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. I can build a magnificent house, but I don't know how to run a business."
Yeah, mate. And again, I was very, very similar to that. You know, by the time I realised the situation I'd got myself in, my wife ran a very successful business. And all of a sudden I had to go to her and say, "I've stuffed up." And okay, well, what do you mean you've stuffed up? It's like, well, I haven't just stuffed one thing up. I've been stuffing up a lot of things. I've been stuffing it up for a long time.
Yeah.
So to have to sit down, with my wife of all of 12 months or 18 months or whatever it was and say, "Oh, listen, darling, sorry." So that was a big one. I mentioned before, my dad was in the industry as well. So he had challenges managing money and had been bankrupt a couple of times. And to me, I was just like, oh my God, I'm just bloody like him. And that was a real hit. And then when I sort of started getting that help, where I rang my accountant and just sort of said, "Look, this isn't getting better. I need a way out of this."
Yeah.
And it was probably something I should have said 12 or 18 months earlier, when the first little bits just started to sort of become apparent to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had a good meeting with him. We sort of worked out how we were going to transition out of the business. And that was pretty painful. We had to sell our house to make sure we paid our bills and all those sorts of horror stories you hear. But as I said before, I walked away. So everyone got paid, everything got sorted out. And it took us a few years to come back from that. Yeah.
I think we've been through exactly the same. And I think it worries me that with social media these days that it's possibly going to get a lot worse. Like there's so much perception out there. Like you see, like I get a lot of messages and stuff from some young builders that are trying to get going, and they ask, "Oh, like I see all these other guys, they're doing this, I can't do that," and blah blah blah. Like I think social media has just made that whole turnover look like you're doing really well, look like you're doing heaps of jobs worse.
It is something that and I think it's not just building, but it's across all sorts of things on social media, that you only see the stuff that people want to put out there. And it's like me on my social media. Like, sometimes I might put up something funny of a stuff up that's happened one day, but 9 times out of 10, it's the nice shiny glossy photos that go up because you're trying to project an image. And I think particularly for younger builders, like you're talking about, that sometimes they can get a bit too caught up in that image, and they're looking at guys like you and I, not seeing the 15, 20 years we've been in the industry building to the point we are now. They're sort of going, well, hang on a minute, why don't I have that? Why don't I have that ute? Or why aren't I doing those sorts of jobs? Or, geez, they look like they've got a great lifestyle. Why don't I have that? And they're doing things, and again, they get caught up in the turnover of let's just do more jobs and more jobs and more jobs.
They just keep chasing their tail. Like, you just get stuck in that horrible cycle. Like you got no cash flow, and you just like. I'm sure you have been in this situation. Like you're in that cycle. You're sitting down each week trying to figure out which bills you can afford to pay, and you've got a few jobs out there. You've tendered a shitload of jobs, and you think you might be close to one. You talk to the client, and then you end up dropping your pants and dropping 10 grand here or 20 grand here so you can get a job in the door. Not knowing at the time that you haven't allowed enough anyway. So now you're even further behind. But all you see it as is, I'm going to drop 20 grand here, get this job. That'll get me some more money in the bank. I'll be able to pay these few bills. And it's
I used to do a quote, and I quite enjoyed the quoting process. And I think I was reasonably good at it, but I'd look at a job with no real experience as to what that job probably should cost. And I'd look at a $200,000 quote going, oh, God, it can't cost that much. So I'd go back and I'd cut this, and I'd cut that, and I'd cut, I can cut that and cut that and cut that. And then you'd go to the client, and of course, they're not going to tell you that you're $200,000 cheaper than the other builders that have been quoting it. So of course you get the job, and you're 2/3 of the way through the job, and you go, shit, I've just run out of carpentry labour. That's all right. I'll use a bit of my margin. And hang on a minute.
You haven't got enough in there to start with.
Hang on a minute. The painters are 15 grand dearer than what I thought they'd be. I'll just use a bit of my margin. And when you don't have enough in there to begin with, exactly as you said, that pretty quickly you get to the end of that job and you go, I had some jobs where my carpenters made more money out of it than me.
Mate, I had plenty. I had, well, it wasn't just that. I had lots of jobs where the tradies and the people I was employing were making more money than I was. Yeah. But again, it's that turnover thing. Like you just have in your mind, like I'm turning over $5-10 million. Like I've got to be making money. But
I've got to be. Why aren't I? Yeah, it's crazy.
It just doesn't work like that. But yeah. So look, I think everyone like part of everything I'm trying to do is get these stories out there, but like everything we've touched on, what's some advice you would give to younger guys that are either looking for an apprenticeship or even started their apprenticeship, or even guys that have got their builder's license? What's some tips and hints that you could give those guys to hit the ground running, or things that they could be doing to try and avoid all the issues?
I think probably number one is, you hear stories that Duayne and I are talking about now, and that's because we've been down a bit of a hard road. It is actually a really good job. When you know what you're doing. Yeah. I mentioned before that, I had a Cert 4 in construction. I thought I was God's gift to the industry. Your Cert 4 is the minimum. Yeah. And I think that's something a lot of guys forget, is that your Cert 4 is the minimum that you need to get a builder's license, plus your supervisory experience and whatnot. Yeah. You have to educate yourself a lot more. You have to understand, I think probably the first bit of advice I'd say to a young builder is get a good accountant that understands the building industry. And that's probably where I fell down at the start. I had a really good accountant, but had a general knowledge of building. Yeah. Get a good accountant that specialises in the building industry. They understand what you need to be doing with your margins. They understand things like your minimum financial requirements for QBCC licensing. So that's probably the number one advice I'd give to a young builder, but also that, don't rely just on your Cert 4. Get into master builders and learn about contracts. Learn about your workplace health and safety obligations. Look into mentors and business coaches and that sort of stuff, because you're no longer a chippy. You're a business owner. Yeah. And that has a lot more responsibilities than just knocking in nails on site. So definitely educate yourself and keep educating yourself. And I think that's where I fell down early on, is there was just nothing out there. And I'll give Live Life Build a plug. I'm part of Duayne's Live Life Build program. That's a fantastic avenue for young guys to go down to actually learn the stuff that you aren't taught through your Cert 4. And I'm sure there's other programs out there as well. Young tradies, again, I think like Duayne and I sort of just touched on, we weren't rocket scientists at school. But, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to be a good trader. You've got to have a great attitude and be willing to work hard. And it's a really enjoyable lifestyle. I'll say to a lot of young blokes that, whether you're a chippy, a plumber, a sparky, once you get qualified, you're actually making really decent money. Yeah. And even trades that probably aren't as glamorous as that, like the tilers and the brickies and the plasterers, again, there's...
they're all glamorous these days, mate. They're all making a fortune.
And you know what? You have a great lifestyle. You're generally around a pretty good group of people to work with. And that, if the be-all and end-all is driving around a funky new Ford Ranger, then, hey, chicks dig utes. So, unless you're a female tradie, then blokes dig utes too, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, well, mate, plenty of chicks have the old dual cab utes these days.
Absolutely, yeah. It's great to see.
So I think that's a big thing. Like I think it might be Jim Rohn that said it. Like if you, like so many people, and this was definitely me as well, like you focus on time. Yeah. And you put all, you go to work and you work 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, and whereas you need to put time into yourself. And I think he says it like if you put all your time and energy into your job, you'll only ever be a worker. Like you'll only make a living. Yeah. But if you put time and energy into yourself, you'll make a fortune. Yep. And
that's really good.
I think for me, that was me. Like because I think it was the way I was brought up. Like the people, the family I was around, and the mates that I had, and then even when I got my apprenticeship, the guys on site, like everyone was always focused on just do hours. Yeah. Turn up, smash out the hours, do as many hours you can, do 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And that's what I did. And I did that for years, but I never got anywhere. I was always the first on site. I was always the last to leave. But my bank account wasn't changing. And it's incredible how much your bank account will change when you put time and energy into you.
Definitely. Yeah. Very similar to you, mate. Like, And I think it was that generation we came through in that, the more hours you did, the more money you made. And I think back to my earlier days as a builder, like I used to make myself available 24/7 to my clients. One of the best things I've done in recent years is just say to clients, I'm available from 6 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday. Outside of those hours, I'm probably not going to answer my phone. I'm not going to respond to your email. I'll respond to it the next business day.
I've got a life.
Because, exactly right. We want to be at home with our families, and we want to take that time for, your marriage, with your kids, definitely. But also, you're absolutely right, for yourself. And that might be...
Do you think it's because you're scared? Like, I think for me, I was scared because I didn't do well at school. And so... everything used to scare me. So I didn't care about my contracts because it scared me to read them because I didn't think I had the education. I didn't try to do more with accounting because it scared me. I thought I didn't have an education or be able to understand it. But so I think that fear really held me back for a long time. And I probably think I got to a point where I used it as an excuse. Like I was using it as an excuse to not put more time and energy into myself because I was a great builder, so I was fantastic on the side. I could build a great product. I don't need to do all that over there. Like, I'll just keep doing this. But so I think don't let, like, for any guys out there that are listening or watching this, don't let fear hold you back. Like, if you haven't been getting A's and B's at school or whatever the case may be, it doesn't mean that you can't be successful.
And I think trades are a great demonstration of it, that you don't have to be a straight A student and go to university to be smart. There's so many tradies I work with, and I'll use Mike Tyler as an example. Put him in an area with a set of tiles and a laser level, and he's just so precise and he's so on the money with what he does. And again, he's done his apprenticeship like most other guys, but he's continued to sort of educate himself. He's gone and gotten his Cert 4 in construction. Doesn't have to as a tiler, but wanted to educate himself more. And definitely don't be scared of what you don't know, because, I'm a firm believer in the saying that you don't know what you don't know. And that's why I really enjoy doing the professional development side of what I do, because, you can sit back and look at it and go, oh, no, I don't need that. But how do you know what you don't need unless you actually look at it and go...
put some time and energy in.
Put some energy into it, into developing yourself. And all of a sudden, these little nuggets of information come out and you go, geez, I never thought of that. Exactly. You didn't know that. So now you do know it.
Talk as well, eh? Like one thing I'm really encouraging is talking, like trying to get builders. Because again, back like when I was an apprentice, it was just, and even when I started out on my own, like it was so, like builders just don't talk. Like you'd run into a builder at the hardware and like there was hardly any communication. Like everyone was like scared that you're going to steal some work or steal their like I don't know what the story was, but like I just think it's so healthy for us, but also the industry, just to have conversations, talk to each other, help each other out, give each other, because as you and I are doing, like we've both been similar stories. We can build off that. We can help each other out. Like you'll know something I don't know, vice versa. But mate, let's get away from all the tradie stuff. Like with clients, like the building industry is not really looked at favourably. Like we if like a current affair will always be first to put a good story on about a bad builder or someone ripping someone off. But push all that to the side. Like the industry is a fantastic industry. There is a lot of great builders and tradies out there.
Definitely.
Like what's some tips that you'd give homeowners that are possibly thinking about building or renovating, what they should be looking out for? I think number one, and this is something I certainly see in my business, is when you start thinking about your renovations, start researching builders then. I think too many people, whether it's on advice from their architect or designer or just from what they've heard through other people, they'll go and speak to their architects, and they might spend 6 or 12 months with this architect getting their plans organised, and then come to a builder and say, well, here's my plans, can you give me a price in 2 weeks? And ballpark. Give us a ballpark.
The ballpark. Oh, the ballpark figure, But it's something we're starting to do with the majority of our clients now, is that most builders will have a pack process or a paid as a consultant process. That's, they'll actually be able to come on board on the ground level with you with your renovations. So when you start looking at your architects or building designer, start looking at builders. Social media is a great way to do it at the moment. Your architect or designer will more than likely have recommendations of builders that they work with regularly. And I think that's probably number one. Choose your builder when you choose your designer and get everyone working together. If you've got a designer, like we've got a design firm that we do a lot of our work with, we come in with their clients on ground level, and so we can, from day one, we're understanding the client's expectations, we're understanding what the finished product is they want, and that as plans come through from concept to detailed design to tender documents, that sort of thing, that we're able to give the client a fairly accurate estimation of what their job's going to cost. So we can sort of look at one job and go, okay, righto, well, we did a job similar to that one 12 months ago. This is what it cost. This is roughly what you're looking at per square metre. Keep these things in mind.
You're involved
in that process. So rather than a client getting to, as I mentioned before, getting that full set of documents done by the architect and handing it to the builder, and then they wanted to spend $500,000 on their reno, and the quotes are coming in at $700,000 or $800,000. And the first thing they say is, "Oh, but we told the architect we only wanted to spend $500,000." And my response always is, "Well, does that architect really know what it costs? I'm the guy that's building it. I know it's my job to know what these costs are."
It's such an old-fashioned industry, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
That design bid build model is just so old-fashioned and so broken.
It is terribly broken.
When you look back at, I can't believe I even used to do business that way.
Yeah.
Because when you look back, and
it sounds crazy when you look back at it, doesn't it?
It's just stupid, mate.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that the industry put up with it for so long. When you I look back now, and every single issue I had on site, difficult situations with clients, not quoting the jobs accurately enough, having to charge clients variations.
Yeah.
It's all been solved now because we do that pack process.
Yep.
We get paid as a consultant. But when you think about it, the builder is on site for the entire build.
That's right.
From the day the ground is cut to the time you hand over the keys. We know every single thing that happens on that site, what has to go into that site, and yet we're left out.
Yeah. It's something I say to our clients that, choose your builder ideally right at the start of your process, but also keep in mind this person is going to be in your life for the duration of that project and then onwards because of our warranty obligations and that sort of thing. Yeah. So if you're thinking you're going to go out with your full set of tender documentations, get 3 quotes and then base your decision on what the price is, you could be engaging someone that isn't suitable for the job. Like generally the cheapest price is not the best, of course.
Well, it's not like a car, is it?
No, it's not.
I think so many issues that we have in our industry is because we are completely different, and yet people look at us the same way. Yep. So people treat getting a house built like buying a car.
Yeah.
Like they think that whatever you want a Mitsubishi Lancer or something, you can go to 10 car yards and get a price on that, and they're all going to have a bit of variance in the price. But the difference is the car is exactly the same.
That's right. Yeah. It's a really good analogy, actually.
Whereas people are building a house, they think the same. They think because they've got their drawings and got a set of plans, that if they give that to multiple different builders, then every builder should price it right. But they always go with the cheapest one. I don't care what people say.
Yeah.
People always go with the cheapest builder.
Yeah.
Because they think that he's priced the Mitsubishi Lancer.
Yeah.
But there is so much more to it. A builder doesn't know how to run his business properly, hasn't got the correct overheads and profit on, which at the end of the day, I do think it's a hard one because clients don't, that's not their fault.
That's right,
So that's a hard one. But there's so many different ways to get the same product. Builders could substitute materials, use something different to what's specified, or their labour rates might be different. They might use subbies. You might have your own employees. There is so many variables in a job. My view on this anyway is and people will have their different opinions on this, but I don't care how good the documentation is. I don't believe you'll ever get apples for apples. No. It's impossible.
No.
Different business models, different products.
You could be dealing with a builder that has and an office and a shed and 3 supervisors and company vehicles, his margins and his overheads are going to be significantly different to the guy who works out of a home office, has 2 or 3 guys working for him, runs his business a lot more streamlined. So you're absolutely right. Like there's no true apples for apples comparison because different builders will build things different ways. Yeah. They'll have subbies that do things different ways. Again, you mentioned substituting materials, that sort of thing. That's why if your builder is engaged from day one in your planning and your design process, then that builder understands what you want. Yeah, and I think you've got a much better chance of having accurate pricing for the scope of works you are asking that builder and that designer to put on plans.
Yeah, it's got to be more about the relationship. It's because at the end of the day, and we get asked this question quite a bit. Like if someone goes in and does the pack process with us, we can just make whatever we want. But at the end of the day, like we know what it takes to run our business. We know what all our overheads are. We know like we have a set profit we need to make to keep the business viable, and that just goes on every job.
Yeah.
If I was being excessive with that or bumping my prices up just because I thought I could, I'm not going to stay in business very long because people my work's going to stop. It's all about building that relationship, doing the right thing by people. Like our motto is like our goal on every single project is to get our clients the absolute best product, best value we can for what they want to spend.
Yep.
And within that price, I've got to run a profitable business.
Yeah.
So it's incredible how broken that old model is, and you just see how rewarding for everybody. Like I touched on before, like if it's more of a collaboration and more of a team.
Yep.
The site meetings are fantastic. Like you build friendships.
You do.
There's no drama.
Yeah.
Like I know back in the day when I wasn't running a good show, like I was the only time that I wasn't stressed was when I was either on a plane in airplane mode or I was out whoop with no reception.
Yep.
Because I was away from the drama. Like as soon as my phone had reception, I just knew that every time I checked an email, got a text message, or like I would hear my phone ringing, and I would see who was ringing, and my guts would just drop, and I would know
just twists,
I've got
and
to
that
deal
anxiety
with this
comes
shit now.
in.
Whereas that's gone.
Yeah,
like there's absolutely none of that anymore. Look, don't get me wrong, we still have the odd little thing go wrong on our jobs, but it's all because we built that relationship. You work through it all,
absolutely,
and you get great outcomes. Like. I'm sure you've got plenty of those experiences as well.
I had one client about 12 months ago. That's when he first touched base with us to look at his renovations he wants to do and that sort of thing. And a red flag for me is that when you walk into that first meeting with a client and the words cheap or not much money start coming up a bit too much.
Yeah.
And I said to this guy, it was totally off the cuff. I said, if you're going in for open heart surgery, do you want the cheapest doctor doing it, or do you want the best doctor doing it? I said, you're about to invest about $500,000 in renovating your house.
Yeah.
Do you really want a cheap job done?
Yeah.
Or do you want a builder that's going to be a good guy to deal with, who's going to give you value for money? I said, and give you a really good experience, do a really good job for you.
Yeah.
You know? And he looked at me and he just goes, I've never thought about it like that. And I didn't say it, but I thought to myself, geez, I've never thought about it like that too. But yeah, it's such a true saying because, again, if a client can put price to the side, because as you said, as a builder, you can't ramp up prices because you've still got to give the client value for money.
You've got to look after
because the last thing we want is for a client to go through all this process with us and the designers and then still get to the end of it and go, no, it's too dear, it's too dear.
Yeah.
So by going through this process, they're told very early on, okay, righto, for what you want, you're looking at around this much money.
Yeah.
And then they can go, okay, right, we've either got to pull things back or we've got to expand our expectations around price.
Yeah.
And when it works, and it does, it works really, really well because the client builds that relationship with the builder and they know by the time they come to the end of that process, we've got a full set of documentation, we've kind of got work, we've got a space in our program already penciled in for them, and that we finalise our pricing and we're able to give it to them with a lot of accuracy. We understand what it is, and we've got a really good relationship with that person.
Yeah.
And in most cases, the client will go, right, where's the contract? When can we start?
Yeah, but you've built that rapport and relationship.
And you're right, it flows the whole way through the job.
Yeah.
Similar to you guys, we have set site meetings with our clients once a week where, because you've got that relationship and you've got that rapport, when issues come up, and they do, on every single job, issues will come up, variations will inevitably come up. 9 times out of 10, we find it's the client asking us to do extra things or changing things that they see it on site they're not quite happy with. That it's a much nicer conversation to have, and that at the end of that meeting, everyone walks away with a smile on their face. You don't have that negative vibe. I'm sure you've sort of felt it, that negative vibe that just permeates through the whole site.
It ruins the job.
It does.
Like if it's there from the beginning, it ruins the entire job. Like at the end of the day, like anyone that's out there thinking about building or renovating, like collaborate, like 100%. Find a builder, designer, architect, work together as a team.
Yep.
Get your builder involved early. Find a builder that is good communicating, open, trustworthy, and make it far more than just looking at the bottom dollar.
Yeah, the last thing we'll be worried about is the price. Everyone's got a budget. I respect that. But if you go through an accurate pack process with your builder, by the time you come out of it at the end of it, that your job will be in and around the budget that the builder's been telling you, because at the end of the day, he's the one that signs the contract with you to say, yes, I'm going to build this house for this much money.
Yeah.
With all due respect to the architects and the building designers that may be watching, they'll do their documentation, hand it over, and then that's their job pretty much done.
Yeah.
Whereas...
And that's another important point, because once at that point they're out.
Yeah.
So all the trouble becomes yours as a builder and the homeowners.
Yeah, and I have a joke with Anthony, the building designer I do a bit of work with, that you can draw all the pretty pictures you want to, mate, but I'm the guy that's actually got to put it together. And when that pack process is done well, then that's a fairly streamlined and straightforward process.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of clients out there, especially ones that haven't done it before, probably like they would be thinking if they go and get plans drawn, then they're done, they're correct. But there is so much of the time there's discrepancies between the design drawings and the engineer drawings. There's things that designers put on plans that haven't been thought through, and then the first time it's coming up is when you're on site trying to put it all together, and then it becomes a time extension and a variation to cost. Whereas getting involved in the early stages and working through everything as a team, you pretty much solve 90% of that.
Yeah, you do.
Well, I know we do. And we have very few of those situations on our sites. But
one question we get asked a bit with clients that, particularly through our pack process, so there'll be no variations. And you're like, well, there's always going to be things that variations aren't something to be scared of. There's something that's part of the process, because I'd rather a client change their mind and it might cost them $1,000 to move a wall frame or whatever it might be. I'd rather them do that now and get to the end of the job and go, geez, I'm glad we did that.
Yeah,
rather than get to the end of the job and then go, actually, you know what, I really wish we had to move that wall frame, but now it's going to cost you $3,000 to move it. So,
But there's always little things that come up, because again, as builders and tradies, we tend to be very visual people, and a lot of clients, like most of the things that end up being variations in our jobs are just simply things that the client couldn't visualize, and now that it's actually physically getting built and they can see the size of things or where walls are, now they might decide to move something around a little bit. But again, it's having that collaborative relationship, so you can actually talk it through, and again, educating your client. Well, we've done it as it's drawn. If we have to do it again, that's extra work. So there's got to be costs involved there.
But what you've just said then, educating the client, I think is a really important thing. And clients, we're not saying that you don't know what's going on, but as builders,
they're not, at the end of the day, they're not supposed to. That's why they come to us.
And we see it quite often where most of our clients have never done a major renovation before. What they know of renovating, they've either heard through friends, which, the block, Scotty Cam, you got a lot to answer for, mate. I love you, but you got a lot to answer for. But they've either heard through friends who have either had a positive or a negative experience. And so I think as builders, we've got to we've probably just got to remember every now and then that this is the first time these people have done this.
Yeah.
They don't know, as I mentioned before, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
So we've got to educate them, and we've got to say, well, here's our processes, and this is why we do this, and here's how this is going to affect this. We had a cracker of a one on a job about 18 months ago where, as we started setting out our wall frames, we realised that with the position of two doors in this particular house, that when you stood in the living room, you could look straight through the master bedroom to the open door of the ensuite and basically see someone sitting on the toilet.
Yeah.
And as we're sort of setting out our wall frames and that sort of thing, that my foreman came up to me and he said, "Hey, just notice this. What do you reckon?" And I've gone, "Oh, hang on a minute. That might be a bit of an issue." So at our next site meeting with the client, we said, "Hey, listen, how about we just try and reposition that door a little bit or something like that?" So that's a great example of something that was in a really well-documented set of plans, but until you're on site and you see it, that you sort of go, "Oh, hang on a minute."
Yeah.
But yeah, again, like it's educating the client. It's being patient with the client as well. Yeah, because again, they're spending a lot of money. We deal in some pretty big sums of money day to day.
Yeah.
For a lot of clients that you sometimes see that, if they're punching $500,000 into a renovation, that's a lot of money and it can give people a lot of stress. So
is that a situation, but like, I'd be interested to know how you would deal with that. Like, in our projects, obviously at different stages, they're dealt with different ways, but we definitely find, because we encourage the weekly site meetings, we book them in the calendar, everyone knows, same time, same day every week. Generally, there would be a walk around at slab stage, or even like we're marking out the frame, we're starting to make walls. So I would look at that differently. Like if that was picked up when we were marking the walls out, we wouldn't charge them because it's been picked up and we can make a quick change before we actually put in the time and the effort to build the walls.
Yep, that's right.
But if it didn't get picked up and we had those walls built, we would charge variation because obviously we got to now pull those walls down, we got to remark it out, we got to possibly buy more material, pull it all apart, remake it. So there's going to be some time and labour there.
Yeah.
So do you do like that? Do you look at it depending on where it's at, how you deal with it?
Yeah, we try to. Very similar to your process, that we'll take the client through when we're setting out wall frames. So we'll have generally our bottom plates, our bottom part of the wall frame, lying on the ground, and the client now can visualise, okay, well, that's where that wall's going to be. That's where that wall's going to be. Oh, hang on. My laundry isn't quite as big as what I thought it'd be. Can we move this wall here, Ryan? And it's like, no worries. We can do it pretty easily. Once things are up and fixed in place, that's when it takes up more time. Obviously, when we're quoting jobs, we allow a certain amount of labour, certain amount of hours for labour on the job.
Yeah.
And for every little bit, and as much as it might only be a little change, but that's still, hang on, that might be a couple of hours for the chippies. That's an hour for me to drive to the hardware store, pick up some more timber and come back.
Someone's got to reorganise it.
Someone's got to reorganise it. There is cost involved. And, we touched on sort of our previous experiences in business, that on one particular job I was working for some lovely people, great reno, they were fantastic clients. And I was doing a bunch of variations for them just free of charge because they were so nice. I got to the end of that job, I spent $6,500 on variations. And I'm like, well, they were nice, but they weren't that nice.
But it's not just that $6,500. Like that $6,500 is plus your overhead, plus your profit, plus the time that you spent doing them, taking off other jobs that possibly could have made more money. So it's a flow-on effect.
It is, yeah. So, but no, we sort of try and get the clients through, as we sort of said, it's our weekly site meetings, but we're on those key milestones. So it might be before the plasterboard goes up. So we'll take the client through. We'll probably have our electrician on site with us as well, just double checking where lights are positioned and power points are positioned. You're happy with how that's going to sit there. So again, communicating with that client, managing their expectations and guiding them through that process, I think is something as builders, we're getting a hell of a lot better at.
But I think a big part of this is because everyone expects builders to give free quotes.
Yeah.
So builders are put off right from the start.
Yep.
So, because I know I used to get like this, like you feel like your time's not valuable, you feel like you're not a professional, you feel like people are just taking advantage of you. Like, mate, the amount of times when my eldest girl was a baby that I didn't get to see her because I'd done my 10, 12 hours for the day, and then on the way home I'm calling in to see some client to give them some advice on what they might want to do for their house, and I'd never hear from them again.
Yeah.
Like it's unbelievable. So the whole industry, like the way it's gone is is probably put a sour taste in a lot of builders' mouths because they do feel undervalued.
Yeah.
Which has then created this big flow-on effect because you've got builders that are getting asked to price huge amounts of work for nothing and only winning, I would say sometimes maybe it'd be somewhere between 10 and 20% of the work they quote.
Yeah, right, I think. Yeah.
So and that time that they're spending quoting is, like we just said, is generally after hours, weekends that they should be spending with family.
Yep.
So again, that's not a good lifestyle, not a good thing to do. And then you're not involved through that design, so you get given these plans, you start on site, you're fixing everyone else's problems that haven't been picked up, you're putting time and money into those that you're not getting paid for. Like it's just, there's all this shit going wrong that like it makes me laugh because I look back now and just think, why?
It does, doesn't it?
Why is that the way the industry works? Like the pack process is just an absolute game changer. And
it is,
like I keep saying, it's not just for me. Like probably one of the biggest improvements is for the client.
Yeah, it is.
The client gets a collaboration with a team. They get a designer and a builder that is on the same page to make sure they get the best product they can. They get very little disruption throughout the build. Like it's a smooth process. Everyone knows where they stand. You have a time frame. You have a fixed price contract. It's just beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, I think certainly since I've started, charging a fee for our reno proposals, one thing that was really unexpected on my end was how much more accountable it made me.
Yeah.
So my mindset was, well, hang on a minute, these people are paying me good money to give them this accurate proposal that I'm spruiking here.
Yeah.
So it's not just, I've had those plans for a few weeks, I haven't had time to do that. I'll just quickly punch some figures together and, I'll get it to you next week, mate. Then it's the week after and the week after. And so part of our process is we say to our clients that we will have their proposal to them within 4 weeks of receiving all the documentation.
Yeah.
So and their fee payment.
In the old days, probably not right at the moment with all the how the industry's going.
That's right. It's a bit harder to quote at the moment, but so that made me more accountable. Which and again, that made me refine my own process in the office to go, well, okay, here's a more accurate process I can go through to make sure that I'm quoting accurately.
Yeah.
2, I'm able to get it back to the client within the time frame I've committed to.
Yeah.
But also that things like requests for further information from the architect or the engineer or whatever, that I'm able to get those requests out pretty quickly. And rather than say sending a set of plans to my plumber and saying, "Oh, mate, can you get me this quote back in 3 days?"
Yeah.
He's like me. He's busy.
You've got some processes and things.
Yeah. So it made me a lot more accountable. And I think as builders, it's getting our head out of the game of I'm just a tradie.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm a businessman. I'm a professional in this industry.
Yeah.
And I would struggle to think of too many professions that have the level of liability and accountability that a builder does.
Oh, definitely, mate.
And when we sort of start to value our time, automatically the clients value your time because you're presenting yourself as this professional, that is going to provide a professional service for them.
And 9 times out of 10, that's what clients are chasing.
Yeah.
They're looking for someone that's going to guide them.
You can't charge someone a fee to give them a 1-page piece of paper with works as per plan written on it. And so it's explaining
single
to the client,
figure at the bottom of the page.
Oh, exactly. It's giving the client the last quote I gave to a client a week or so ago was a 17-page document, fully broken down scope of works, fully itemised PC allowances and provisional sums, so the client knew exactly where their money was going on the job.
And again, it's all education. Like it's educating the clients on what they need to be.
It refers back to educating those clients, doesn't it? Yeah. So what the difference is between a professional builder that charges for their time, like the engineers do, like the architects do, like the building certifiers do.
Yeah.
We're all part of this collaborative team to give the client what they want at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, mate, we might wrap it up there. That's we could talk all night. That's been a cracker.
Just about,
some quality information there. I think we've added some value to a lot of people that are listening.
I hope so.
So, mate, keep up the great work.
Yeah, and, mate, thank you very much for having me in the shed today. It's been a pretty cool experience.
No worries. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate.